Are you ready to learn all of the lessons that I had to learn the hard way when it comes to working from home for the last 10 years? If this is your first time on my channel, my name is Lai Lacaba. I've been working from home since I was 15 years old. I'm now 27, so it's been a while. And I now run a virtual assistant company here in the Philippines, 2XU. And I post videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have a business from home. So make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of my videos. Now, it has been a wild ride of a decade. I figured out or found out what it was to work from home at a really young age just because I was experimenting, playing around. And since then, I've been on this journey from, having a career to becoming an entrepreneur to now running my own business for the last 3.5 years. And it's been, again, just a crazy, wild, fun ride. There's been a lot of ups and downs as life would be, but it is a path. If you're someone who's thinking right now, like, hey, I want to work from home, I want to work remotely, this is the path that I want to take. I'm going to walk you guys through step by step, again, the different lessons that I've had to learn and in how to actually do this for the long term. Because as I've said this in other videos before, working from home isn't for everyone just because you need to have a particular mindset in showing up for yourself, for your clients, for the people that you work with to be able to make this be successful where you don't have to go back to working in an office job if that's not your goal. One of the reasons why working from home is not for everyone is it just doesn't fit their lifestyle. They just do, they like having that structure of going to an office, so on and so forth. So if you are someone who really wants to work from home for the long term, this video is for you. Now, the first big lesson that I really had to learn was you're on your own, kid. And I honestly giggled to myself when I was writing my script and wanted to put, a Taylor Swift song in there. But it is really true. When you work from home, you're really on your own in a sense where even though you have mentors, even though you have books, even though there's so many things that you can learn from other people about working from home, you have videos like mine, you still have to figure out what it means to you, of what works for you. And to quote my favorite Taylor Swift, of like, it's good news and some bad news that you are on your own. It's bad news because, again, you have to figure things out. You have to find what works for you. It's a good news because then you figure this out of what works for you, what makes sense for you. And you can grab different tips, different mindsets from other people, but it has to be what works for you, your lifestyle, your goals, the things that you tackle every single day. So for example, for me, my daily routine might not work for you, especially, my routine is like I wake up, I meditate, I write, I read, and then go to working out for an hour and a half. That's not for everyone. Not everyone can do that. And I have that time because I'm someone I'm unmarried, I don't have kids, I have this business that I run where I can work mostly at any time other than meetings. So I have that flexibility. For some people, they have kids, they have a set time schedule with their client. So you have to find, again, what works for you, what makes sense for you. Second lesson that I had to really learn is surround yourself with the right people. Now, what I mean with the right people is usually when we are working with people, we don't have the choice. We have the choice or the freedom of like, okay, this is not my coworker, this is not the person I'm working with. But what I mean with surrounding yourself with the right people is find support. Find people that you can relate with or relate to. Find people, Facebook groups or Reddit groups or Discord groups of people who are going through the same thing as you, and finding people who are a few steps ahead of you. So this is going to finding a good mentor for you, someone who makes sense. And I've always said this before, but when you're finding a mentor, look at two things. If they have what you want, the life that you want, and they've been where you are. So this is why, getting mentors who have just a little bit of what you want, but they didn't actually experience where you're at, this is kind of where it usually fails. But you want to surround yourself with mentors, people who are where you're at, so then you guys can uplift each other to the next level. You have your friends, your family. You might not always get to choose them, but getting to the point where you know that you have support to lean back on, that you can, like, okay, you guys got me. That kind of feeling. That's kind of goal that you want to get to the point with your career working from home. Next lesson that I had to learn, again, the hard way, is that the right people won't always stay. And that was kind of really one of the harder lessons that I had to learn myself was when I started 2XU, I had this amazing group of assistants. And at this point, they've all sadly left. And they were the right people for the time. When I was starting my business, I was figuring a lot of things out. Like, how do we do this with clients? They were very collaborative. They gave me a lot of really good suggestions. They allowed themselves to be my experiment so then I could figure out the rest of the things inside of 2XU. So then now they've all moved on. They have amazing careers ahead of them. And I'm just grateful. And again, they were the right people. If I tried to hold on to them and kept them back from the amazing careers that they were about to have, that would have hurt them a lot. And of course, me in turn. So just because you found the right people, know when to let go, know when to set boundaries. Know that just because they were the right person for you at that time doesn't mean that they're the right person for you moving forward, because that's also going to be the case. Just because you were the right person for them at that time, the next stage of their life, they need someone else. So I've seen so many people burn themselves out by holding on to their clients, by holding on to the people that they work with. And in reality, again, they needed to grow. They're a different person. They need something else to move them closer towards their goals. And maybe staying with you, or as employees have stayed with me, it might not make sense for them anymore moving forward. So know that the right people won't always stay, but as long as things make sense, you guys can continue that relationship. Next is experiment a lot. Now I've been saying this word a lot already throughout this whole video, just because a lot of my life has been kind of just this huge experiment of what works for me. So going back to you're on your own, kid. So what I mean by experimenting a lot is the world is such a big place. There's so many combinations. There's so many ways that you can make things easier, make things faster, or just make it where you actually like what it is that you're doing. And that's important, because if you want to do this for the long term, it has to be something that you like doing. So go ahead and experiment. Whether you're experimenting how you want to work, how your desk setup looks like. I have changed my desk setup so many times, even in this room that I've only been living here for the last 2 years. I've changed it from my desk is there, my desk is facing here. Right now my desk is at the moment at this corner of my room. Maybe next year I'll probably put it right there. But it's okay to experiment to find what works, because as you shift, as you figure out different things about yourself, about your work, about your career or your business, if this is your business, then it becomes something where hey, I'm comfortable here and this is how I can work and show up for for my best self. So experiment with the skills that you have, experiment with resources that you have, so then you can find what can work best, what can propel you into the next level. Next lesson that I learned is think long term. And this was something that when I started working from home, I had a little bit of, not even a little bit, a lot of a survivor mentality. What I mean by that is I just was thinking of the next day and the next day and the next day, because at that point, when I really started working from home, seriously, I was 18. I just came from a super typhoon. And in my head, I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to okay, what's the next thing that I can do? Because I wasn't thinking long term. I didn't think that I could do long term. I'm now 27, almost 10 years later since I started, working from home more seriously. You have to get to the point where you can think, okay, I'm investing in my time for this, so that in the long term, this is what I'm doing. And a lot of the time, what this can mean is when you get in the job and you're not sure, you're kind of I don't really like this job, stay. Think long term. What is the long term benefits of me staying in this job versus if I found another one and then staying there? A lot of the patterns that I've kind of been seeing is a lot of people quit, after 6 months, or if something doesn't work out for them, or it's just again, a meh thing, then they can leave. But in reality, when you are starting to build your career, it's always better to have some sort of long-term relationship with either your client or your employer, because then this is how you develop yourself. That's how you work on yourself. To the point where you know systems. So as an example, let's say you applied for a job as a virtual assistant and you were I don't really know how to do this, I don't really know how to do that, I'll quit after 3 months. But the magic is usually beyond that. Once you start creating systems, once you start creating routines for yourself, once you see what you can do when there's a crisis. So think long term when you're making decisions when you're working from home, because as long or short your life would be, you're planning ahead. You're looking at your goals, you're looking at the things that you want to do, because then it makes so much sense for you to stay in something for longer than 6 months, because then you're able to see the processes, you're able to see the behind the scenes and grow from there. Next lesson was the right tools can only get me so far, or get you so far. So what I mean by this is I've talked a lot in a lot of other videos where I talked about making sure that you have the right tools, what tools to use. And honestly, even if you have, the most expensive, robust, has everything that you need kind of tool, it will only get you so far as you can do. Tools multiply you. Tools multiply what you do. So if you're a person who you barely use the tool, that you super powerful tool that you have, you don't know how to utilize it, you don't know how to use it, you don't know how to make it to your advantage, it's just going to be another tool. So as you're learning more about yourself, about your career, about your business, utilize the tools that you have, eliminate as much as possible. That's actually one thing that I like to do, is eliminate tools that I'm not using. I see and check if the tools that we're paying for especially is something that we want to use, because if you just have too many tools around you, that takes up a lot of your brain space and you can't sustainably keep working on it. So tools will only get you so far, so find the right ones, stick to them, experiment, see what they can do, and then you can think later on, hey, assessing, is this still the right tool for me? Next is your routine matters. So this is a lesson that kind of took me a little bit to learn, because I had different morning routines. I would look at what other people are doing, I would read books, I would do this, I would do that, because I was trying to find what works for me. And until this day, it still is an experiment. But having a routine, and a beginning of day routine and end of day routine, is so important when you work from home, because it essentially becomes your switch to start working and then not working. Because when you work from home, your desk is right there, your bed is right there, your kitchen is right there. It's so easy to get lost if you're working or you're relaxing at home. So it's important to have that morning routine where you are switching from being asleep to becoming human, basically, and getting through the way that you can start your day in the best way. So again, mine is when I wake up, I meditate, I journal, I read, and then I work out. And then after the workout, then I start going into working on the one thing in my life or my business at that point. And then at the end of my day, after my last meeting or last task I was working on, I then kind of do the reverse. I do my skincare routine, I do a little bit of journaling, try to read, I call my loved ones, and then I go to sleep. So then there is that hard kind of just divider of I'm not just waking up and working or going from working to going to sleep. I have a way that I can process through my day, so then I'm not just having this of just reacting instead of responding. Next lesson I had to learn was working on yourself, working on myself. So this was something that was very interesting to grow into and to learn about when it came to reading self-development books, when it came to reading business books, is when you get older, when you get to the point where you are living on your own, when you are working for yourself, when you are getting to the point where you have this career, yourself is your biggest foundation. How you think about yourself, how you do things, how you think about how you do things. A lot of the time we respond to stimuli, we respond to the things outside of us without looking at hey, how can I work on myself so then I can better respond to the things outside of me. That's a really important thing to start working on. So that's why I read a lot of books, a lot of courses. You have a lot of really good mentors around me. So then I have this way that I can see, okay, this is something I want to add into my life. This is something I want to remove from my life. This is the kind of person that I want to become. So I've just constantly been developing myself. Next, and this was kind of a really hard thing to learn and also teach other people. So if this goes over your guys' head, I don't blame you. Work-life balance doesn't exist. Let me say that again. Work-life balance doesn't exist. It's weird to say that because we've been taught to balance your life, to balance your work. But in reality, your work is part of your life. It is. It just is. So then for you, it's seeing, not balancing. It's making work just be a part of your life. It's not the main part of it's not the main thing. Of course, you spend 8 hours a day on it, but it doesn't have to be the main part of your life. So adding in hobbies, adding in things that you love, creating your routines, developing and working on yourself. These are the ways that you're kind of supporting the work part, but the work part also supports everything else. So it's thinking of it as this big, amazing world or stratosphere that that if you don't give to yourself, you can't give to anything else. So for example, for me, I take care of myself in kind of a really weird way. I know Mondays and Tuesdays, I have really back-to-back meetings almost, sometimes lasting until 11 p.m. And then on Wednesdays afternoon, because I have morning meetings still, Wednesday afternoon, I take the afternoon off. And I will respond to messages, I'll check emails from time to time, but most of the time I'm just off. And I made that decision very early on because I want that to be what my life looks like. So that I take that little break. Then by Thursday, Friday, I'm recharged. We have the weekend where I have the choice whether I want to keep working or not. But it's that keeping in mind that work is part of my life. I don't have to find work-life balance because work is part of my life. Next, you are your own brand. And this is something that I love talking about because I love talking about content and brand. But what you show up or who you show up as, how you show up on social media, how you show up at work, how you show up in your emails, in your templates, and the ways that you work is your brand. So you have to be mindful about how you show up and how you want to show up. So this goes into, again, developing yourself, developing your own ways of how you're doing things. Again, you're on your own, kid. What are the different things that you can add into how you show up or remove from how you show up to then align with who you want to come? So keeping that in mind, the next time you post a funny meme, hey, this is aligned with who I want to become. Is this, something that I want to do? So a good quick example is for me, I sometimes doubt myself, should I listen to my story or not? Is this something that will align to my brand, what I'm doing? So then I know I have a second Instagram account because it's a different brand of mine. So again, it really depends on how you want to show up. just keep in mind, whatever you put out there, how you work, how you speak, how you do things, how you get things done is part of your brand. So be mindful. Next lesson is learn how you learn. So what I mean by learn how you learn is just learn how you like to ingest information so you can teach yourself things faster and better. So for example, for me, for years, I was forcing myself to watch video courses, do this, do that. And in reality, I learn best in two different ways. One is by reading. Second, if it's live event. If it's not any of those two, I probably won't ingest, or it probably will take me so long to be able to get through that. And it's funny because, I do video content, but I can't consume video content. It's the weirdest thing. So if you're someone who, you've been trying that, you've been pushing on like reading books, but reading books isn't for you, and want to try audiobooks or try finding, videos where they do summaries of the book. Don't force yourself into something that you don't like learning about, because you're just kind of burning yourself out a little bit faster. Next is, speaking of, you're in charge of your growth. And I've touched this in a lot of different parts of this video already, but you are in charge of upgrading your skills, whether that's your hard skills or your soft skills. You're in charge of growing yourself. And that's a really important thing to focus on when you want to do this in the long term. There's always going to be something new. There's always going to be a new skill for you. But you learning about yourself, about being human, is going to be something that will be your edge throughout everything else. With AI, with other tools rising, if you learn more and develop about yourself, that's going to be your edge versus people who don't work on themselves, who's just working, the day-to-day. That's going to be your edge for working on the long run. And lastly, and this is like a really good lesson and probably could be more powerful, but I wanted to put this in here anyway, is document everything. What I mean by document everything is, I've talked about in these videos, create standard operating procedures, create checklists, create ways that you can document your growth. So then this way you're making your life just so much easier. If I didn't have a checklist on how I want to create these videos, I'll be totally lost on days where I don't want to do it. So then you're building this documentation for the days when you don't want to do it. And also it's pretty fun to know when you can look back at things like, hey, this is how I used to write, and this is now how I write. Or even better, documenting the work that you've done for other clients, so then you can use that as case study or as testimonial or as proof for your next client. So document things as much as you can, because it will help you look back like, hey, this is how far I've come. These are the experiments, or these are the portfolio, these are the things that I've been able to do in my career so far. Now, if you guys like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button right there, and comment below if you guys want more of these kinds of videos where I'm just talking about my experiences, things I've kind of gone through in the last decade. And I would love to just basically talk to you guys more like this, and a little bit more stories and a little bit less tips maybe. We'll see. And if you guys still haven't yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right there so you don't miss any of my videos every Sunday and Thursday on how to work from home and how to have a business from home, which you guys can check out those two playlists right here and the latest video right here. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and with it, small steps matters, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.